Joe Burrow is one of the high-profile athletes who have been a victim of thefts, and it's a crazy string of thefts that's been going on. And in this case, 4 illegal immigrants had been arrested later for the burglary of his home. They were caught by agents as they were seen packing what was described as suspicious luggage into their car. And this is an alarming trend. And joining me right now to talk about it is CBN Sports' Will Dawson. Will, how's it going?
It's going well, better than Joe Burrow, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, this is like it kept popping up. Like every week or two, you'd see another top athlete. It was Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, both had their homes broken into. And it just, all of a sudden, it felt like, man, these athletes must be kind of getting a little nervous here because it doesn't feel like incidental, right? Like, obviously, these are millionaire athletes, so they're going to have higher value target homes in general. But there's a lot of people with, multi-million-dollar homes. So the fact that they kept hitting NFL players, it seemed very suspicious. It felt very targeted, the whole thing.
There are a lot of interesting things about this story. A lot of them. Where do you even start? When it first happened with Patrick Mahomes and with Travis Kelce, and I believe there was somebody else that I can't think of off the top of my head.
There were two players on the Browns, Greg Newsome, Perrion Winfrey.
Right.
Another one, Felton on the Browns, and then Ricky Pearsall, if you remember him.
Yeah, right.
He was shot during an attempted robbery. Now, that's different than the home robberies, but still.
Yeah, completely unrelated, but man, Ricky Pearsall has had quite a journey over the last year.
Yeah.
But the first thing that I heard that it was related to some kind of gang activity or immigrant activity, and I thought, how is that even possible that they could come into the country, that they could do their scouting from the outside of the country, come into the country, do the crime, and then escape with no, or even if they do escape, maybe they're just coming over here and hanging out for a little bit, which in Joe Burrow's case, it looks like that's what happened. But it's amazing to me. And here's the other thing that kind of blows my mind as well. So Trump, as we record this, took office just a couple of days ago. In the first 33 hours, they rounded up and arrested 460, almost 500 illegal immigrants for crime. That means that our government knew exactly where these people were. They weren't just bumping into them. They knew where they were. And so that tells you at the end of the Biden presidency that all of these immigrants who are criminals, who are convicted criminals, who are fleeing crime from wherever they're from, they were just here and we knew about it. And it wasn't until Trump took over that we could actually go do something about it.
Yeah, that's really remarkable, and it's alarming, really. By the way, it's not just NFL players. Will, Luka Doncic was another one that had gotten robbed. Yeah. Jaylen Brown's mom's house was robbed, and it's a dangerous situation because and again, it feels, I don't know. I feel like there's more to this story that we're going to get down the line because a lot of these players. Now, I haven't looked into any of these guys' homes, but or how easy it is to find. But a lot of these guys they know that they're high profile figures, right? So when they buy a house, typically it's not going to be like, oh, I'm just going to put it in Patrick Mahomes' name and no one will notice. Like you're already a target and well known, one of the most famous people in the country or in the planet. So a lot of them use like LLCs or other names to kind of purchase the home in so that it's not so obvious to find them. So if that's the case with some of these players, I mean, it makes me think, well, that we could be seeing more to the story because you have to get to a more sophisticated level of research and scoping things out in order to pull something like this off when people like celebrities go through a lot of effort to have their privacy maintained.
Yeah, just the number of athletes, millionaires, that are part of this. You're absolutely right. There's something bigger going on, and they're certainly connected in some way or another. And the technology makes it so that they can do their surveillance through Google Earth or whatever they're doing. The question is, do they have someone on the ground that maybe is posing as a FedEx driver, a UPS driver, or something like that, Amazon delivery guy that's coming in and doing surveillance as well. Who knows? But I do know that it's encouraging that that they're catching these guys, at least in Joe Burrow's case, that they've caught them. And it's kind of a funny way that happened too.
Yeah, it was. And one other thing I'll say, when we talk about the targeted nature of it, it always seems to happen, these crimes, when one of these players is on a road game and they are nowhere near their house, right? So they're just assuming that no one's going to be there. I think in Burrow's case, his girlfriend maybe was there at the time, or potentially. So, incredible that nothing really tragic has happened other than loss of property at this point. But yeah, the ones that were caught, these 4 illegals that were caught, it was kind of comical, as they had already been detained while they were, loading up this suspicious luggage. They also figured out that, here, I'll read it exactly. It said, when they were brought to the Clark County Sheriff's Office for questioning, a detective called one of the cell phone numbers that pinged a cell phone tower in the quarterback's neighborhood at the time of the burglary. So picture this scene. Police said when he calls this phone, he's like, hey, this phone number right here that I got, it was at Joe Burrow's house at the time of the crime. So I'm going to give it a call. He gives it a call, and one of the guys standing there, his phone just starts going off and ringing. So it's kind of like, oh, that's not looking good for you. So
Gotcha. Yeah. The other thing too is that one of the officers noticed a Bengals hat, and then they go and they look in the bag, and there's an LSU T-shirt. And so I know that one of these officers has got to be a sports fan. He's like, LSU, Cincinnati Bengals.
What are the odds?
Exactly who that is. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
All
right. Well, we'll definitely. Yeah, crazy, and we'll keep an update on what's going on here with these crimes and if there's further developments on it, because it is wild. And again, shocking, maybe not so shocking, that it's 4 illegal immigrants that have been apparently detained on the Burrow case. So, all right, let's move on here, Will. I wanted to do a quick preview of, we've got NFL football this weekend. It's the Final Four, and this is a pretty crazy couple of matchups here. And again, Will is heading up the CBN Sports channel. Check out the YouTube page. Check out their Instagram. Great sports updates from a Christian perspective. So Will is heading that up, and it's fantastic. But these games, Will, who do you like in each one of them? Let's start with the Chiefs and Bills. It's a classic rematch. You got the 2 best quarterbacks. What do you think?
Both high-level games. And I believe, and I would probably be in the majority in this one, I'm sure that I am, the winner of this game is probably your Super Bowl champion between the Chiefs and the Bills. How do you pick against the Chiefs? I mean, we're talking about sustained success over the last 5 years. Chiefs are looking for 3 Super Bowls in a row, which is just incredible. I don't know how you do that, but also when you watch the Chiefs play, it's not like you're watching a dominant Patriots team.
No, they're not lighting the world on fire. But they're
win. Not at all. They're winning close games, and they're doing it in such a way that people who want to find problems with the reffing are finding it, but you don't have to look very hard. I know that Patrick Mahomes is the rate by which he is getting roughing the passer called is about 4 times as much as other quarterbacks in the league. And so you got to go to Arrowhead and play that game as the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills are the better team, but the question is, can you go on the road? Can Josh Allen do it? Can he do it in the playoffs? He hasn't so far, and it's hard to make that prediction. I can tell you the scenario that I want to happen, only because CBN Sports has covered the Super Bowl. We'll be doing it again this year from New Orleans at the CBN Sports compound down there about a mile from Caesars Superdome. I would love for the Bills to win this game. I think it's, for a common NFL fan, you kind of want to see something different. So I'd love to see the Bills go in and win that Super Bowl. There are a lot of cool storylines on that team. Josh Allen has talked about his faith journey, which actually started during the Damar Hamlin injury. And he kind of had awakening is a bad word. It makes it sound kind of mystical or whatever, but it made him reevaluate his faith that he had learned from the time he was a young man. So I kind of like that storyline. Obviously, Damar Hamlin is there. There's Von Miller, who's a veteran of the NFL. It's been around for such a long time, but he's a strong believer. And over on the Chiefs side, you have the owner, Clark Hunt, who's a believer, and Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of guys who profess faith in Christ. So we're not going to be short of content when we get down there. But when it comes to the game, I think the Bills are the better team. And honestly, I would love to see them win. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, a little torn on it because I kind of agree with your sentiment that, yes, it's good to get some new stuff in there. You want to see Allen get over the hump, right? All those good things. But on the other hand, no one's ever three-peated before. And, and it would be wild if Patrick Mahomes, who, started with some offensive juggernauts with Tyreek Hill and all these people on his team, and now he's taken different rosters and different approaches, like they're kind of eking out games. They just find a way to win. So it would be wild to see them back in it. But I'm with you. I kind of think the Bills do it this time. I think Allen, he's obviously everybody wants to win, but I just feel like Allen is so good. And I would imagine that he's just going to will the team to victory on this one. But we'll see. I mean, everyone said that against Mahomes, and it's failed every time. But I'm going with the Bills. I think the Bills are going to win it.
Cool.
And by the way, I was correct on my Ohio State prediction. I know it was a crazy prediction, but I was correct on that one. So just everybody out there, if I'm going Bills this time, at least for this game. Let's take a look at the other one, Will. We've got an NFC East. The NFC East is back now with the Washington Commanders. I can't say it as a lifelong Redskin fan. They're technically the Commanders. In my heart, they'll always be the Redskins. But they are playing the Eagles, and obviously the Eagles are favorites in this one. But, Washington with Jaden Daniels, very strong. Christian, obviously, but he's had quite a rookie year. But it should be an interesting game. But I think Washington's in for an uphill battle here.
I don't disagree with you. Jaden Daniels has been the surprise of that draft class, and it's not even close. What a tremendous year they've had, the Commanders. I would say it's been up and down. They've had some great victories throughout the year, and really they've been pretty consistent. They've been consistent throwing the ball. Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal. They've played the Eagles twice this year. They're 1-1 against the Eagles. They won the home game most recently. They lost the game on the road, but those games were really tight. If you look on paper, those teams are very close. And what it came down to, the Commanders, I keep wanting them to call them the Redskins as well. The Commanders turned the ball over 5 times in that 8-point loss originally to the Eagles. The Eagles did turn the ball over twice, so the Eagles were +3. You're going to win a lot of games if that's what happens to you. But the big difference between the two games, in that first one that the Eagles won, the Redskins were 3 of 12 on third down. In the second game, the Eagles were 3 of 16 on third down. That's the difference in the game. Turnovers, and then who can sustain drives. Saquon Barkley's been a monster all season long. He ran for 150 yards in both games against the Commanders earlier this year. The Commanders obviously won one of those, but can you slow him down enough that you create 3rd and longs for Jalen Hurts? And if that's the case, I think the Commanders could go in and win. I think this is going to be a closer game maybe than people think. I think it's about a 6-point spread in favor of the Eagles. But man, we could be looking at an upset like we haven't seen in a while, to have a team like the Commanders come out of nowhere and make it to the Super Bowl. So my hope for the Super Bowl is the Buffalo Bills and the Washington Commanders, and I'll probably be upset where we have a rematch of Super Bowl from 2 years ago, and you have the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Yeah, and look, it's certainly possible. Washington's sort of been like this, one of those teams that they get the I believe bug, and it just kind of keeps going, right? Like a fairy tale season, and we'll see if this is the end of the road or not. One last story here, Will. Dan Hurley, the coach of the UConn Huskies, high-profile coach for the men's basketball team there, had kind of a viral meltdown here, and it's being talked about. But what happened here?
Dan Hurley head coach of the UConn Huskies, back-to-back national champions. Wow, his antics on the sidelines, even the last few years, really, it's kind of it's been emblematic of him his whole career, where he goes after referees and he's just energetic. But now it's catching up with him in such a way that they lost 3 straight games earlier this year. They've lost 2 out of their last 4 games, and Hurley goes up to the ref, arguing a call. Ref turns his back on Hurley, and Hurley basically said, with some expletives in there, I'm the best coach in this game. Don't you turn your back on me. Kind of like a, whoa. You can read his lips. Yeah. I don't endorse doing so, but yeah, Dan Hurley is a guy that I've talked to on a couple of different occasions, and he's a very likable person. He's a professing believer. He's also talked about struggling with mental health. It's something that goes back to, Dan Hurley's dad, Bob Hurley, was a famous high school basketball coach, St. Anthony's in New Jersey. His older brother, Bobby Hurley Jr., was the All-American point guard for Duke during the Christian Laettner years. They won a couple of national champions. So, yeah, you look at a guy like Dan Hurley, who didn't have the success like his dad and his brother, and all that pressure is on him to succeed. He didn't do it at Seton Hall. He averaged about 8 points a game, which is not terrible, but he wasn't the overwhelming success that the kind of the pressure the Hurley name expects out of you. So he puts all this pressure on himself. He has issues with mental health, some depression, some suicidal thoughts. And even going back to winning the championship in 2 consecutive years, he said, it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't the life-changing thing that he thought it was going to be. And so, for our viewers, let's pray for a guy like Dan Hurley. It's easy from the outside looking in to look at it and say, to kind of enjoy a train wreck, to watching a train wreck happen. That's kind of the way that we're wired, I think. And I'm not a fan of UConn, so I don't pull for them to win. So, but there is a human element when it comes to Dan Hurley, and it's unfortunate what's happening. I'm not going to say he's going to miss the tournament, but they've got a tough stretch of games coming up in the next couple of weeks, in the next month, as they head towards March Madness, and keep an eye on it because it's something that's concerning.
Right. It's not just this one incident, right? We're seeing this happen kind of again and again on the sideline. And usually that's in as I was sharing with you beforehand, back in I played basketball in college, but then a few years later when I wasn't playing as much, I'd start to get frustrated when your skills diminish and you can't quite do the same things. And I'd find myself being frustrated and arguing with the referees and it wasn't the referee. I wasn't really mad or upset with the referees. I was more upset with myself. So when you see somebody kind of going off the rails like that, usually there is a deeper issue at play there. And so with the history that you talked about there, like you said, couldn't agree more that, we should be praying for people like that. For sports fans and we're watching these things, we shouldn't feast on these kind of moments. We should definitely be praying for Dan Hurley that whatever's going on there, that he can get some peace from that. And like you said, that's I always think of that. I think it was Brad Pitt. It was attributed to him. I don't know if he actually said it, but it's the sentiment is real, right? And it's he said, look, I'm the poster child guy. Movie list, A-list movie star, the most attractive man alive award, all this stuff. And he's like, and it's not it does not fill you up. Now he's not a Christian, so he didn't say God fills that. He was so close, he walked right up to it. But to what Dan Hurley's saying about those championships, all of these other things in life are just they don't satisfy. They never will satisfy you. Only God can do that, and only the forgiveness, the grace, the peace, the mercy we get from placing our faith in Christ. That's the only thing that can do that. And so sports are fun and they're great to follow. We love doing that. But you gotta keep that bigger picture in mind. And that's why it's so great when we see a lot of the people you talk to, Will, that in the sports world that do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Solomon says something about that in Ecclesiastes as well. And if anybody had accomplished anything more than Solomon, well, they had. So as far as wealth and notoriety, so wisdom, all of that stuff. So it's fleeting, and wins and losses don't define people, and that's what we hope to shine the light on with CBN Sports, is to talk to players who know what the ultimate goal is, and that's to glorify God.
Amen. All right, Will Dawson, CBN Sports. People, make sure you're checking out. If you like sports, make sure you're following the CBN Sports channel on YouTube. Follow them on Instagram. We'll put all the links in the description of this video. Will, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.